Hello, welcome to the Union Pacific Railroad Evanston Subdivision. This is the first video on a brand new layout that I'm going to be working on over the next months and years to come. My old layout, the Union Pacific Railroad Geneva Subdivision, has been torn down and hauled to the trash. And I am now making plans for my next layout, which will be an HO layout based on the Evanston subdivision in Utah and Wyoming. We will not be in our new house until July sometime. So I'm using the months right now to plan the new railroad in my new house. And we do have the house picked out, it's being built. So I know the dimensions, so I've been working on the new layout, which will be the HO layout, which would be a big departure for me, and a mountain railroad on the Evanston subdivision. Before we get to the new layout, just one brief pause for the old layout, the N-scale Geneva subdivision, which you see here at the landfill, tore down. I did save all the equipment and so forth. I will be selling that. Now, here is the track plan for my new layout. Again, I was able to use the dimensions from our builder on my new house, or our new house, my wife and I. And you can kind of see where things lay out. I'll be going over all these different aspects. The color key is the blue is the main line. Orange track is a staging yard, red track is crossovers, control points, and the purple is all the secondary track. And let's zoom in here a little bit. First of all, I just want to talk a little bit about some of the things that we'll be looking at avoiding. One is the water heater and the ejection pit and furnace and stairs, kind of working around all that. Again, I'll be having the staging yard kind of snake through those obstacles. I'm going to try to make sure on this layout, as you can see, the throat of the staging yard is completely accessible to the layout. And then it will also be accessible on the inside of the staging yard. So all the tracks will be accessible, a big change from my previous layout. I did put in a bathroom, although I did not do the rough-in plan for a regular bathroom. Instead, I'm just going to have a bathroom, which you can see labeled there, that's going to have a urinal that's going to connect to the ejection pit. I did not want to pay the extra money for the rough-in, and plus they had the rough-in only go in a spot which I did not like for the layout. We're having I think we're going to have the staging yard around and through the bathroom, water heater, furnace, ejection pit, stairs, and so forth. Okay, so there you have the throat there is exposed and it can be assessed as is the throat here on the other side. All right, from the throat, which will be Ogden, all right, the total layout will go from Ogden to Green River. And first of all, a little bit about the staging yard tracks. As you can see, the length of the tracks is quite long and can handle quite a few trains. The smallest one can hold 32 cars. The largest one or longest one can hold 44 cars. Now these are at an average of 60-foot cars. So coal cars will probably even be able to go up to 50-car trains for coal cars. Of course, I have to buy all of those, which may take a while. But I will be selling my N-scale equipment, and that will hopefully compensate for some of those expenses. All right, so as we leave Ogden, the first major town is going to be Morgan, Utah. Now, there's a lot of good scenery between Ogden and Morgan. In fact, there's a Riverdale, I think, yard. But we're going to start with Morgan because there's quite a bit of really cool scenery between Morgan and and Echo. Excuse me, Morgan and Devil's Slide. Here we see some scenes of the Evanston sub. This is again going to be a big departure from what I've been doing for the last 50 years, which has been mainly prairie trains through the Midwest. So this is going to be mountainous sceneries. You can see the mountains there going over the Weber River, which kind of goes along the same path as the railroad. So there'll be a lot of bridges, a lot of good scenery between Morgan and Devil's Slide. Here you can see a curve here, and you can see I have two bridges. I'm going to have that little curve there represented by this little area here. I think it's a Taggart mountain there that you can see. Here you have a satellite view. You can see where they bore a tunnel through this Taggart mountain or piece of rock. So that's going to be represented on that curve. There'll be bridges on both sides for the Weber River. You probably will have the interstate crossing, but will not include the curve of the interstate. So that's going to be represented right here on that curve somehow or another. And then from that area, there you can see also the crew area that we're going to have. It's going to serve as a crew lounge, but also will be serve as a gathering point for my grandchildren. We'll have a TV there and video games and stuff so that they can use that when we have family over. Right, from Taggart Mountain area, we will then have Devil's Slide. Here you can see what the Devil's Slide looks like. Geographic formation. Should be interesting trying to model that exactly as possible. We'll see. And then here you have then the Devil's Slide, which will be the actual control point. So you have the Devil's Slide geographical feature and then the Devil's Slide railroad location, which includes a crossover as well as Wholesome Cement, which you can see will be right in that area there. So we'll have some operations. Here you see Wholesome Cement. There's not a lot of businesses along this line. It's very mountainous, sparsely populated, but there are a couple, and enough to generate some operational capabilities along the main line. And here, this is the Wholesome Cement area. To get to the cement area, you have to go under the railroad here. There's the Weber River. The main line crosses the Weber River quite a few times, and it does here at Wholesome Cement area. All right, from Wholesome Cement, then we go through more mountainous scenery towards Echo, Utah. And this kind of gives you an idea of what this area looks like between Devil's Slide and Echo. So a lot of different geographical formations that I'll try to reproduce. Forget what this area here is called. I'm not sure if I'll model it or not, but you kind of get an idea of the general topography. One thing I want to mention about the control points and the crossovers, for this area between Ogden and Evanston, they don't really have control points or crossovers, I should say. Instead, they have a system where they have a middle siding. So you have a double track main line, and then at different areas they'll have a siding in the middle between the two tracks, and they would use that then to control the operations and going around trains and so forth. That does not really work real well for a model railroad operating scheme that I'm using, so I'm kind of taking some modularist license and doing crossover control points throughout the whole subdivision uh, instead of just between Evanston and Green River. So here's a Echo Utah control point. My control points will use number 10 turnouts, and each control point is 6 feet long. Now you can see the main line between Echo and Wasatch. They will separate from each other. And one main line there, the one that has the curves, is the original main line, built in 1869. Um, and then this other main line is the one that was built in, I think, 1929 or that area. So you have the curvy one, which is the original, has grades up to 1.7%. And the other one, the more modern one, has um, grades of only 1.14%. And then they actually cross each other here. So we have an area there with some tunnels, and they actually cross, the main lines cross each other, with the uh, older curvy main line being higher than the more modern one. And so there'll be some really good opportunities for some very interesting scenery with tunnels and so forth. The curve here for the modern main line is 42 inches, whereas the original one is down to 2 feet, but where it's a radius of 2 feet, it's hidden by a tunnel, so that should be interesting. And then from that area, then you come upon Wasatch. And here you can see how the elevations between the two main lines differ. So the one that the train is on right now is the original main line. The lower one is the more modern main line. And that's going to be actually represented on the layout. Now, the separation there looks, pretty extreme. The separation that I will have on the layout will be enough to have them cross over, but not quite as big of a difference as you see here. But it'll be enough to where you kind of get an idea of how things will look. This is definitely going to be a cool area of the layout. Coming up to Wasatch, where to get back to the crossover, there it's going to need to come together and have a separation of grade at this point, and then eventually when it gets to the summit of Wasatch here, you can kind of see it in the distance. Okay, they'll be at the same grade. So definitely will be some interesting railroading and interesting modeling. This layout is going to be more of a rail fanning layout. There will be some operations. There is a yard in Evanston, as you'll see in a little bit. And there will be some switching at Wholesome Cement, and then there's also going to be one at West Vaco, and so on. We'll get to that in just a little bit. All right, so from Wasatch, there you see the control point. Then it goes quickly into Evanston, and the Wasatch is not very far from Evanston. So this whole area here, from the tank facility all the way to the yard there, is going to be Evanston, basically. So it's going to be more of a town. And Evanston does have a tank facility. There's a repair facility there for one of the car leasing companies. So that will be modeled, and then there will be a yard at Evanston. There is an actual yard in Evanston, but this one is going to be a little bit more, probably a little bit more extensive than what the yard is in Evanston. The main yard on the Evanston sub is actually in Green River. But on this layout, Green River will be staging yard, so I'm going to kind of increase the yard in Evanston, and then not have a operational yard in Green River. Here you can see the tank car facility in Evanston. That will be modeled on the layout. And then here you have the outskirts of Evanston. Evanston's not a real big town, but you do have the roundhouse in Evanston. This was been taken over by a nonprofit organization and is being restored. This was a roundhouse that was used quite extensively during the steam days. You can kind of see it. So I'm not really sure how I'm going to do this roundhouse or if I'm going to include it at all. It's really a huge building. So I'm not sure if it's going to be a part of it or not. If I can work it in somehow, I will. There's also a working turntable there, but of course no tracks. There's also a station that I definitely am going to include in Evanston. And here you can see a train going through Evanston, past the train station. A lot of intermodal trains will be going through here. I really like coal trains, and there's not very many coal trains on this part. Here's the yard at Green River, which is a pretty extensive yard. You have trains arriving and departing in Green River. I don't think you do on the prototype in Evanston. So on my layout, there will be a train originating and departing from Evanston each day, so that will be a part of it. And Green River will just be staging yard, so there won't be any operations there except for staging trains. All right, from Green River, the main line here will be about 7 inches higher than the staging yard, so there will be a helix here to go down back to the level of the staging yard, and incorporated into the helix will be a crossover to make up for the crossover over back by Wasatch. And so that will be there, and so that will be I'm going to concentrate on getting that done first, and then if I'm so motivated, and I think I probably will be, then I will add a second level to the layout. So I'll probably, get some trains running, having some operating sessions with just the first level. And then as time goes on, I will add a second level. So when I do the second level, when the trains from Evanston come in, they will not go into the helix, will not go to the staging yards. Instead, it will just continue on to the second level. So it'll start off already being about 7 inches higher, and I will have an incline to get it even more separation, try to get it at least 10 inches or so elevated before it comes out to the modeled area there. And then you have the layout on the second level will be from Evanston to Green River. And this is the part of Wyoming that is just very, very sparsely populated. There's like nobody there. So it's going to be, I'm going to make the level narrower than the first level, which will help out a lot. And then this is basically the kind of scenes that you'll be seeing on the second level. So a lot of Wyoming grassland. Mountains will probably be, mainly in the distance on the backdrop. There is one main industry here. There's a west of Vaco mine. They have a lot of these throughout. You can see it in the distance, and there will be a lot of operational potential with with covered hoppers to carry the minerals. I can't remember right now what the mineral is, but there will be some operations, like even a small yard there you can see there West Vaco Mine. There you go, right there is where that mine is going to be. And you can see I even have like a little yard there. So there'll be some operating going on there. So there will be a lot of main line running between one end of the layout to the other, but then there will also be some, train stop, local stop to switch the two industries, and then also maybe some maintenance away working on rails. I'm going to include the Altamont Aspen tunnels. I'm going to make those as close to prototype as possible, but it's not going to be too hard to do because you can't get there. Nobody really knows what it looks like. I do have a couple of pictures and I'm going to try and get out there. So then it will go back to the helix and down to the original level. And there you have it. The Union Pacific Railroad Evanston Subdivision in HO scale. Please subscribe to this channel and like this video, and I'll be having more as construction begins. Take care, everyone.